it is all, so it is all completely transformation about my life. So I can say that it is one more birth for me being in Hiddleheim. So that's what I mean it.
Thank you, Chandana. Thank you so much for those words. And I think it's just the right, moment for us to call upon somebody who co-founded Hiddleheim and is the trustee emeritus. He's the champion of possibilities, transformation, and leadership, and is just the right person to tell us more about the idea called Hiddleheim. But just before that, we want to play a small video for all of you, which takes us through what kind of transformation is currently happening, and how are these young people who are in our program changing their lives, making important decisions, and moving ahead with agency after graduating from our Making Their Capable program. So I'm just going to hand over to our IT team to play the video.
Properly, I was wasting my time, and I feel that I thought that I have wasted all my mom's money.
इसलिए यह है कि हम किसी से भी एक तो अच्छी तरह बात नहीं कर पाते, आई टू आई कांटेक्ट तो बहुत बड़ी बात है, क्योंकि हम फेस टू फेस बात करने के लिए इंसान में एक तो वो कैपेसिटी होना चाहिए, जिसको कॉन्फिडेंट बोलते हैं, वो भी होना जरूरी है, क्योंकि इंसान को जब एटीट्यूड नजर आया है कि हाँ इस लड़की में कुछ तो है, तभी तो ये हमसे इतनी आंखों में आंखें डाल के भी बात कर पा रही है.
There are two kind of person, just thought who can write a speech and do another side who can helping my family give a speech. Just like financial for me, I was provide them kind of person who write a speech, but because of that class, I started to give a speech.
I'm from Kumlu. Then only one day, just one day, I become a famous to everyone as a leader in JVIT college, Dynamic institution of commerce, leader, team worker, decision maker, everything to others.
मतलब फैमिली इनकम में ऐसा तो कुछ खास नहीं था, क्योंकि शॉप में काफी कुछ ऐसा था, लेकिन उससे यह था कि घर का गुजारा हो जाता था. काफी अलग सा लगता है कि मैं ऐसा थोड़ा बहुत कर सकती हूँ,
My father is no more and my mother is housewife, so I decided to leave my education. I'll say that what I have done. Baban is a self-dependent person,
and I felt that nobody is there for me.
person.
उस टाइम पे मैं पढ़ाई करती थी, पापा गुजर गए तो मैं पढ़ाई नहीं कर पाई. मुझे नर्सिंग करना था.
I'm very proud to be a student of Hiddleheim
सब्जेक्ट में. इट्स माय 12 के बाद मुझे जीएनएम करना था,
I can do
पैसों
anything.
का सपोर्ट नहीं हो पाया पापा
I
के
don't
बाद,
need any
तो
help
फिर मैं नहीं.
to complete my education. I can do it myself education in between, depending on myself. There is no chance to recontinue
दो चार
or
मेरी फ्रेंड है, वो भी बोलती है
carry on.
कि अब तुम तो इतने टाइम रुकी हुई हो,
So
अच्छी
I
खासी
feel
जॉब कर रही हो, तो क्या हम
guilt
लोग
on
आ
my
जाएं?
mom
आ सकती हो,
because she has struggled so many
वैकेंसी निकले
many
तो
times
बताना,
for
उनका जरूर
to
बताएंगे.
eat also and to
I will definitely
lead
get
the
a job
life for us.
with
And even though I was not
15,000
studying
salary,
properly,
and
I was wasting my time. And
of course with a
feel that
Fortuner.
I thought
My
that
dream
I have
is that
wasted all
I wanted
my
to
mom's
teach for the
money students as a trainer to my
ये
students.
है कि हम
And I
किसी से
should
भी एक तो अच्छी तरह बात नहीं कर
help
पाते,
to
आई टू
the
आई
poor
कांटेक्ट तो बहुत
people
बड़ी बात है,
and be a
क्योंकि हम
social
फेस टू फेस
worker.
बात करने के लिए इंसान में एक तो वो कैपेसिटी होना चाहिए,
To continue
जिसको
my
कॉन्फिडेंट
education.
बोलते हैं, वो भी
I
होना
want to
जरूरी है,
complete my
क्योंकि
graduation.
इंसान को
As a
जब
girl,
एटीट्यूड नजर
I
आया है कि
felt
हाँ इस
I
लड़की
am
में कुछ तो
alone
है,
because I
तभी तो
don't
ये
have
हमसे.
Sorry, there was some technical glitch at our end. I think there's some overlap in the video or the audio of the video, but I think we have got a gist from just knowing Chandana, who she is and how she has transformed. And Sunil, you've been an important part of Hiddleheim, obviously. I mean, there is nothing else that we can add to how important you've been. You've seen Chandana's journey and you've been continuing to see how we have now reached out to so many thousands of young people. So over to you to just share with us, what is this idea called Hiddleheim?
Well, I think the name itself, the beauty of the name is that it says itself, that every person on this planet has the right to have dignity in their life. And there is no dignity in poverty. There is no dignity in not having a chance to have a life, a simple life. So all we did, Madan, Rajesh and I, when we started this, was to find a way that just like I got a chance to live a life differently, to enable somebody else to have the same chance, which they would never get because they were, deep, far away, 300 kilometers away in some village, and nobody was going to talk to them. And the only way we could figure out was we could do it in a small community, and we didn't have any money, tons of money, and we just said, how can we make something happen? And we realized that why are people poor and stay poor? And we figured that they don't have, and I think Madan articulates this better than I do, that they don't have the ability nor the opportunity to be able to have a job or something to do which would give them amdani. As simple as that. So if they had no education, they wouldn't get a job. If they had education and they didn't have the opportunity in the villages, they would still have to be unemployed or wouldn't be able to survive. So our whole intention was to enable them to lead a life of dignity. And this became possible through, we just said that we have to find a way that we can compress all our education into a very small period of time. And I remember I would say 1 year and Rajesh say 6 months, 4 months. I said, boss, aram se yaar, 1 year is good, yeah. And the first time we did it, when Chandana did it, it took us 8 months. And subsequently after that, it was always 6 months. And that's become the byline, that's become our genre. That program, which was invented then and has now subsequently gone through such great changes and brilliantly implemented by the team which we have. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you for taking us down the memory lane. And I just want to bring in Madan now, because without you, Madan, I don't think the celebration or the talk of Hiddleheim would ever be complete. And what has been the essence of Hiddleheim for you? What has shifted in you when you started the journey? Over to you.
Thank you, Parul, and good evening, everybody. What a delight to be here. They rarely do organizations or movements see 10 years. And it just feels like yesterday that I was in Sunil's house, walking in the lawns around the house, trying to figure out what should we name ourselves. Of course, just to set the record straight, it is officially, formally 30th of November 2011 that we incorporated Hiddleheim Foundation as a trust. But Foundation for Life has been on for the last 14 years or so. 2017 is when we started this journey. But I think we formalized this journey in 2011. And I could still remember the goosebumps that we had when suddenly, I think out of the blue, we said, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. And we said, hey, how about Head Held High as the name for the foundation? And it's so true that many times the power of words, right? The organizations take on energy and purpose from the name itself. And I think we started out on the right foot by naming ourselves Head Held High. For me, the other moment I remember is when I met Chandana, Ramesh, Meghraj, the Magnificent Eight, as we call them. And it's wonderful to see now. I think we just crossed 200 participants for a brief while. We're back to 198. But, these are the stories that have launched hundreds and eventually hundreds and thousands of aspirations. When I met Chandana and Ramesh for the first time, especially during the transformation process, I was pinching myself sitting there. Am I living in a dream? Right? All my life, the previous life, I had assessed people like Chandana, Meghraj with now what I feel is a stupid test, and say that you're good and no good. Of course, then I realized that the purpose of the assessment was different. But that's when it struck me that if this is the potential that exists in every human being, and that potential can go on to not just change their life, the family lives, but can go on to change everyone's lives around them. Imagine the gift and the treasures that lie within and what we can do with it. And that's been the essence of Hiddleheim for me, right? I mean, Chandana's presence here, and if I were to just reflect on her journey over the last 10 years itself, is a fantastic testimony to what the possibilities can be. From a young girl who was resigned to marrying early and hanging on to the coattails of the husband for the rest of her life, to somebody who came in, transformed, worked in a BPO, tried to run a BPO. I still remember, Chandra, you galvanized 4 people and we're starting to do a outsourced entity in your own home.
Yes, sir.
Failing in that, coming back, joining Hiddleheim, becoming a trainer. And now you're an entrepreneur running an NGO as well and impacting lives of many others. Right. And imagine the power of if every youth, if every young person were to find a purpose for yourself and the communities around you, imagine the world we would live in. And to me, that is Hiddleheim. And that's the celebration. So it's really not about Hiddleheim, it's not about 10 years, whatever. It's about each one of you. It's about each of our I wouldn't even call it trainees, of our icons who have helped us to discover, what we need to be doing. And, that's the spirit that we are here to celebrate today.
Thank you, Madan.
May I take 1 minute to just acknowledge Madan and Rajesh? So Rajesh is not here with us, but Rajesh was the true, inspiration, and he gave up his very high-paying job voluntarily because our trainer decided to quit the day we got 8 people assembled. And he said, I'm going to make it happen. And he gave that up and put himself fully into this. And he committed himself to this for all these years until it became stable and Pankaj came and took over the reins from all of us. And Madan has always played a low profile, but he virtually funded us so many times because we would run out of money, and Pankaj, Madan would just take out his checkbook and start cutting checks. I don't know how he would have survived otherwise. And his whole spirit, never say die. He would, even when the things were down, because everywhere something would go down, right? Madan was one guy who would say, don't worry, we'll figure it out. So thank you for that. Just wanted to say that to you and to Rajesh, because they are the two heroes of our community. And the actual heroes, of course, are the people who run the program and are so magnificent, like Chandana, Ramesh, and Meghraj, and the other chap who joined us. Unbelievable. I'm so inspired by them every single time I see him. That's it.
Thank you. No, Sunil, again, your stubbornness is what has got us here. I still remember several times saying, why don't we do this and why don't we do that? And your clarity of purpose to say, no, this is what we are for. Whatever is the difficulty, we'll stay that path. And Rajesh's doggedness to, once he got a bone in his mouth, he would never let it go. Right? I still remember the Koppal batch that we used to go in the middle of nowhere, darkness, 6 o'clock, no lights in that place. And Rajesh should be still chasing the 30, 40 guys we had in that campus saying, let's talk in English and let's talk about that. And I said, Rajesh, chodo yaar, it's 9 o'clock in the night, let them go to sleep. No, this is too early still. I think the other thing, just to complete the reflection in a way, is, you look at all the angels that we have met along the path, right from Tushar Gandhi to several others who are on our trust and advisors. Then, especially me, I was in Manipal and Anand Sudarshan, without a batting an eyelid, he said, what, for the first 2-3 years, let's incubate Hiddleheim and the Manipal. So I got a formal approval from Manipal to spend a part of my time on Hiddleheim while I was pursuing Manipal. I mean, these are all instances that could have made up, broken our journeys. And at every point of time, we've encountered angels, several angels. Arun is here, of course, we'll get into a conversation. When we first met Arun, when we were trying to do GAP, it was such a, out of the world experience. And Arun flew down to Bangalore, spent a day with us, helped design GAP. And those are life-changing experiences for all of us, I'm sure, right? So we've had several people, or Sunil, remember, we had the support of Mr. Ratan Tata earlier on, but I still remember going and it was funny how we dragged our wing commander Rakesh Sharma to Mumbai just to give us moral support in front of Mr. Tata, because we thought, hey, we will not face up to his brilliance. And he came joyfully with us, and Mr. Tata at the end of the day said, hey, I think we are able to give you a grant, and that grant is what has got us started. So if you look at every stage of the journey, there is a divine plan in play, and there are angels who come, and not to mention, I think at the end of our tether as running Hiddleheim, we found Pankaj, who said, I'm going to take the reins in my able hands, and you guys don't interfere with the operations. I'm going to run it. And what a run we've had the last 4 or 5 years. So I think a huge round of gratitude for each one of the angels, including all the youth who believed in us, decided to spend 6 months with us, etc., and their parents. I'm just overwhelmed with joy and gratitude as we remember all the friends, the lovely people we met along the journey. I wouldn't trade it for anything else in my life.
Let's acknowledge everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Madan, and to everybody here who's joined the call. I'm sure you must be seeing places like Mahad, Machilipatnam, Dhanbad, Sindri, Raichur, Gule, Chaivasa, and I want to invite the man who's behind this crazy scale up. Pankaj, over to you.
Thank you, Padal. So at the end, I'm the guy who gets them all to work more. Anyway, thanks to all of you. Thank you for being here. So lovely to see all of you. So I've been, we truly appreciate all of you being here. We are here to rejoice in this momentous occasion. And what I have to do is to talk about where do we go from here. So, taking a little step out of the script, when I met the Hiddleheim team back in 2018, all right, once got the sense of things and what we got to do, what the mission was. The question that kept bogging us down is, where do we go after 10? All right, so it's been a long discussion. We were discussing when we were 8. And let me begin by saying that a milestone of this magnitude is unimaginable to achieve without the support of our wonderful employees, trustees, and partners. And I wish to express my deep gratitude to each one of you for standing by us and supporting the various programs. So I constantly, I don't know, maybe it's a failure, but I live life by bullet points. So, I break it down for me. I can't see the world map. I have to break it down into small islands. So at the relatively ripe age, but not so old age of 10, what have we learned? To me, my simple mind, it's 5 things to me. The first thing is poverty is relative to time, place, and distribution. All right, seen so many hues of it going around the country. And I think we can finish a couple of lifetimes just exploring India. So that's been a learning for me. It's so relative to time, place, and distribution. Rural communities may be in the same storm, but they're not in the same boats. So we keep talking about saying we are working with rural communities. I'm absolutely amazed how we have to change our interventions. When we go to each community, India changes rural community to community, not 100 kilometers. Income equality to me is not a problem. I look at it as a default state of nature. It's going to be there. When we accept that, I think the focus, which brings me to my 4th point, the focus should be on raising the baseline standard of living rather than bridging the gap. And then last but not the least, and this is a conundrum where we are all perennially confused. Should the youth we address be targets of change or agents of change? Now the board and the 3 co-founders especially, we have this deep discussions. How do we create agents of change? And I'm sometimes saying, while I'm in the room, saying, let's address the targets of change well. And then when I come out, I say, hey, don't they have a point? And then it's back to the drawing board. And that's where I think the genesis of the next 10 years came in. All right, because while these are 5 bullet points for me, these are also 5 areas on how we address. 10 years is another small journey. So learning from the above, I would say post facto 10 years, we believe that the next 10 is about collaborative planning, combined with a very intelligent study and group action. So what we have clearly learned is it's not a one-man show. We are not individual contributors. The universe has meant for us to be together. And I think what the past 10 years has told us is, in essence, we should have a convening to deliver the components of transformational change. So that's what we are doing here today. We are exploring possibility, a very simple word loaded with a lot of significance for us. Now, what does it mean to me personally? Because, I don't want this, we spoke about it. It's not about a celebration of Hiddleheim. It's about celebrating, what have we learned and how do we orchestrate it on a larger scale? What do we do to eliminate some of the problems permanently that we see? So it's about approaching communities beyond an intervention lens. I think that is the first big learning we have had, that interventions are not enough. We need a solutions-based approach. And pardon me if I'm sounding corporate here, but when you're trying to bring in systemic change, we can't do it by a very incomplete and not thought out solutions. So we need a solutions-based approach to incorporate live experiences in the community. It's not about, I learned of something sitting in, an AC 5-star, and then we can, it's about living in the community, having the shared ecosystem, shared values. And we keep talking about the COVID, and I believe sometimes it happens. But the problem with COVID is the recovery strategies are longer. I mean, we can't sit and moan about and say why COVID came and all. We are not in control of that playing field. But what we are in control of is, how is the recovery strategy going to be? And one thing I think all my colleagues and all my fellow travelers in the social world acknowledge that the recovery strategy must be longer. And living in the resource crunched world with long recovery strategies, we need to think about possibilities and partnerships. So the next 10 years is defined by I think when we look back at 2030, I think the next 10 years will be defined by what I call the largest lifestyle experiment in history, called COVID. All right, it's changed a lot of things. It's expanded the poverty fault lines. A fault line which is there, it's just filled it and spread it apart. People, just increase the baseline standard of living and suddenly find them miles away from what they were before. So recovery strategies have to change. And that is why we approach community, I say, beyond an intervention lens. It's about collaborating. So for me, it follows that the campaign today, keeping all this background in mind, it's called the power of possibilities. So I'm keeping it open-ended. I think all of us want to hear and learn from, what is the hue everybody brings to the word possibility, and what is the power we could engage. So we plan for this to be a year-long campaign. We don't want it, again, we don't want to define it as an intervention. We want it to be long-lasting. And through this, we explore what we can achieve collaboratively. Objective is to create a collective of partners to achieve desired outcomes. So what are we going to do across the 1 year? We want to do monthly webinars to discover the transformation thesis, what we are doing now. The first of it starts today. We have a very esteemed panelists on board for this. And ways to adapt our theory of change to greater impact. And the reason we put our theory of change is we put a lot of thought into it, and we want to see how it aligns and stacks up for the future. So I think a discussion around this possibility is very interesting to us. A series of short video interviews is what we are doing with social sector thought leaders. We want to do it like a staccato firing across the year, and capture all this nuggets of information to see where we go. And then community level talks to spotlight local issues. We work across 100+ districts in India, 25% of them aspirational. I think the biggest thing we could do to get things right is to go so grassroots that we hear the voices from ground zero. So that is the purpose of the community level talks. Last but not the least, and this I owe the ideation to Madan and Sunil, is the launch of 1 for 1, an initiative to support 10,000 women entrepreneurs. This is the copyright words of Sunil. The 1 for 1 program is an incredible way to bring the world together. One person at a time, one donor who also becomes a guide for 3 years with one person in poverty. I just took it, Sunil, don't mind me, but I thought that was the best way to bring out the essence of the program. So I wish to extend a personal invitation to all of you to follow the campaign and wherever possible, be an active part of our mission and journey. I also urge all of you to be a member of this vibrant ecosystem. It's not enough to work in silos anymore. We can't intervene separately. We need to be together. And let us collaboratively drive an even greater impact over the next decade. I'm really looking forward to exploring the power of possibilities with all of you. And I try to end with what's in it for me. All right, we have changed the world, but what's in it for me? So I think we have an incredible board of trustees. What I'm looking for across this 1 year is how do we connect all the dots? What are the people saying? What are the thought leaders of the sector saying? Look at all of them, learn from them, connect the dots, and bring forward an approach which is an ecosystem playbook for all of us. So this is what I, sort of want to get away. It's beyond Hiddleheim. We never looked at Hiddleheim as an organization. It's a mission. And today, I would like to invite you and open this mission up to all our partners. It's no longer the mission of employees and founders. It's about partners. We are all in this together and we want to connect the dots together. Thank you all. And
Pankaj, thanks a lot.
Hand over to Parul and for Madan to take over from here.
Thank you, Pankaj. Thank you. It's very inspiring to hear you say what you did. And I also wanted to acknowledge that this is the longest you have spoken in a forum. So full marks to you, over to you, Madan. I think the next bit of discussions is something that we are all looking forward to. Please.
Thank you, Parul, for sutradharing this whole thing so far, and for obviously acknowledging your sutradharing at Hiddleheim as well as across multiple projects. I think we wouldn't have been here without you and the entire team that is so passionate about this. And Pankaj, so resonate with every word that you said. I think the phrase that was coming to my mind was that if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And we realize that we're on a longer journey. Hiddleheim clearly in all of our minds is, to use a cliche term, a movement and not an organization, but we truly feel that way. And I think we could have chosen a better occasion and to kind of start the conversation on this. So it is not that a few of us are sitting around saying, oh, this is what we'll do. It's a co-creation exercise with ideas flowing from all over. And the idea is that at the end of 1 year, if you've had enough conversations at the grassroots with our communities, with thought leaders like the terrific friends that we have on this conversation today, I wouldn't even call it a panel, it's more a conversation. The idea is that if you can do a regular series of conversations, soak in the ideas, and perhaps at the end of 6 months, 9 months, we will have an inkling and a set of concrete ideas on how do we build this much stronger, faster, better together, right? And I'm stealing the Olympic slogan as well, but that's the idea. And delighted to have two dear friends, Dr. Balu, who he says, if you are not my friend, you call me a Dr. Balu, otherwise I'm just Balu. So Balu, thank you for being here with us. Balu's hard to define him in a few sentences, but I would suffice to say a friend, philosopher, and guide, and somebody who's seen right from the being an activist at the grassroots, now probably helping to redefine grassroots at a national level itself and make it much more grassier roots. So thank you, Balu, for joining us. We have Arun again. I would, Arun's been that mentor whom you call whenever in doubt, and Arun will give you 2-3 stories and anecdotes, and you come back saying, aha, now I kind of get the drift of where you're going. Arun has been a part of the journey. One of the finest systems thinker India has, I would say, the world has also produced, and author of several books, very thoughtful pieces. Arun, thank you for as ever being a part of our journey. And delighted to have Rima Ben join us. Thank you, Rima Ben. I know you're running multiple schedules, and thank you for slotting for fitting us in, even though we intruded on your schedule. Rima Ben needs no introduction as the force behind Seva, but I must say that Rima Ben has been that elder sister to all of us at Hiddleheim. With all the experiments that she's allowed us to do with Seva, the co-creating that we are attempting to do, the energy that Rima Ben brings in to the larger purpose and what we need to do is astounding. So thank you, Rima Ben, for being a part of this. The conversation today is amongst friends. As I said, this is not a panel discussion. I'm pulling in Sunil, Pankaj also to chip in wherever you feel that, hey, listen, there's a very interesting point being made. The whole idea of the conversation today, and we're beginning today over the next several months, is to delve deeper into a few questions, right? Simple but profound questions to say, we are talking about youth transformation, potential of youth. What is it that, from each of your own perspectives, and Arun and I were having a brief chat, maybe Arun, you can phrase the question better. I'll get it to you, to kick us off on this conversation. So you're on mute, Arun.
Thank you so much, Madan and Sunil. What a joy to see you and to hear you, and Pankaj and Parul, how much you have progressed. As you say, Madan, that if we want to walk far, walk together. Actually, it seems strange. But if you want to walk fast, the quick wins and the slow-hanging and low-hanging fruit, then go on your own. But you'll end up just there with some low-hanging fruit and no tree that is growing more fruit for everybody. What's coming to me is, yes, we've been using the term which Pankaj introduced again about, being from the corporate world and needing complete solutions, and we must work towards a complete solution. And I remember when you asked me, Sunil and Madan, to come down to Bangalore and meet with your founding team, it was a thing. All of you were great managers, and you had succeeded with your management skills in various enterprises. And I just asked you, you asking me like a consultant in management, how should you do what you want to do? And I just had to ask you, why do you want to do something difficult? Why do you want to do something difficult? What is it you really care about? What is it you really care about? And this gives me a chance to, of course, ask you once again the question, Madan, what is it that you really care about? But I was provoked to say by asking this question to everybody, what do I really care about? And I do feel that when I engaged with you, it was action on poverty. And as Pankaj has also said, that it's not a matter of inequalities, because inequalities will always be there. It's a matter of lifting the levels of incomes of the people at the bottom. And actually, that's not enough for me. I feel it's a matter of correcting some injustices in the economic system, in the system, whereby some people are more likely to be at the bottom, whose incomes we then have to help to lift. And others, as Sunil mentioned, he says some of us had the privilege to be in positions where it's easier for us not to be in poverty. And there are many others, it's not a lack of their courage and their energy, as I was hearing some of the people in the earlier few minutes in the video. My goodness, their spirit is much greater than mine, and perhaps equal to yours, Madan and Pankaj, but much greater than mine. And I say that it is injustice. I do, it makes me angry when there's injustice being done by the way we think about the people at the bottom of the pyramid, that, we have to do something for them, poor chaps, going to help to increase their incomes. This is where I think we don't give them dignity. It's in the attitude that we have that, and you use the word very well, Pankaj, about interventions. Interventions is a very corporate sort of idea. You make a program with an objective and you do something, result achieved, and it's done. But just like you said, if you have to make a systems change, in a system which itself must change its own norms, its own beliefs, and the way it works, it's an evolutionary process. And I can't say what the corporate-like, engineer-like plan would be to produce that outcome, because I must also learn and change along with the change in the system. So it's an evolutionary process that brings me there. And here I have to acknowledge my teachers here. They're present, two of them, Rima and Balu. And from Rima, I had learned about the power of women, poor women, who have evolved something, and they continue to evolve a new world around themselves, and a world which is inspiring the rest of us to say, if they can do, why can't we do it? And Balu, yourself, I could smell the fragrance of yourself in your center outside Mysore. You weren't there, but meeting with your team there and what you do, where it was about also nature being part of the evolution. It was people and communities and natural stuff, agriculture and the grass, like you said, Madan. It's an evolution. And so I come to this matter about giving up something. Giving up something. As Sunil said, we admire people who've given up something to come and help. What is it I've given up? I haven't yet, but I must learn to give up my ego. And this is where I come back to the Bhagavad Gita and Gandhiji about, you have a right to the work, but not to the fruits thereof. And the fruits include the feeling of, see how good I am, and being praised for it. And so you have caused me harm, Madan and Sunil, by saying that I have done something which is very good. Now I'm worried. Feeling good about it and feel chuffed about it. And so I'm going to turn to you, Madan, back. What is it that you really care about?
So it's lovely that you framed it that way from an injustice. I see injustice in a different light. When I see youth and millions that India has, the world has. And for me, I care deeply about the power of unleashing that, right? So Professor Yunus, when we had met him at Bible and the Global Action on Poverty, said it so beautifully. He said, a lot of us die without knowing what treasures lie within. And I found that to be such a powerful statement, so true for everybody, that there is a hidden wealth which can make a huge change, not only in my life, but in the lives of many others. And a lot of us are so ignorant, I wouldn't say ignorant, but we don't even know that it exists because we haven't looked, or whatever, or the society around us saying, oh, you're nobody. One anecdote that changed my life in a way here, Arun and Rimaben, I'm sure, when I'm just reflecting, early days of Koppal, I had asked one of our youth, saying, what did this program change in you? And I thought he was going to say, I learned English, I learned how to dress properly, and he had just got a job of 8,000 rupees in those days, which is a lot of money. But he didn't say all of that. All he said was, I used to go to a chai shop in my village. That chai owner used to treat me very shabbily before. When I went, he used to say, you know what, just take the chai, sit, vanish, don't disturb me. But he says, after this program, I went there wearing shoes and shirt and asked him in English, saying, I want a cup of tea. And he says the amount of respect I got from him, that I was somebody, that it is just this. I think that was a critical thing for me, and that's what I care about the most, right? So if I were to just play that round robin, maybe I'll bring in Rima Ben to say, what gets you to do everything that you do? What do you care deeply about, and how do we then, what are the things subsequently we'll get to saying, how do we then amplify that?
Thank you so much. And I don't know in front of you all and Arunji and Dr. Balu, I'm nobody. I'm still, but I think, you know what you were referring to, and I think it's the dignity and self-respect that everybody is looking for. And I think that is what we all need to really learn. The biggest thing I have learned, having been working with Seva for so many years now, is that whom Arunji was saying are at the bottom of the pyramid, but they are the wheels of the pyramid that keep the pyramid moving in spite of, you know, crisis after crisis. And I think what I have always seen is that they don't want any charity, they don't want any support. All they want is work. And I think work that brings them dignity and self-respect. So therefore, you know, when Ilaban used to tell me that poverty is a form of violence, I was not able to understand. But when I started experiencing what a life of a poor is, first day I went on a drought relief site, and we all know that, you know, on a government drought relief site, normally everybody goes on digging, no matter that results into infrastructure or it's a way of giving, you know, work and therefore relief money to the poor. At, you know, first day, second day, third day, I saw that when the government relief work would stop, people would move, all the women, and go to another place and keep on digging. So the third day I went there and I asked that we all have been here from morning and now, you know, work has stopped. Why don't you all go home but continue still digging? And one old woman showed me some tubers and she said that this is our only meal of the day. And it was such a humbling experience that, you know, with so much of dignity that they work, they toil for the whole day, and yet they did not ask for any food or anything free. So I think what we have to learn is that, you know, giving relief packages and subsidies is not going to result into longer term sustainability or longer term development. And I don't know, there are 200 young people, does it make sense to them or not? But I think even the young in the villages, all they want is dignified, decent work. And I'm sure no young man or a woman would want to leave her village. They all want to continue living in their same villages, in their same towns, or, you know, wherever they are. But all they are looking for is, you know, a decent work that brings them dignity and self-respect. As you were saying, he wore a nice shirt, pant, and shoes, and the whole scenario changed. And what does that signify? It was just his respect was, you know, maintained. Otherwise, nothing else changed. He wasn't given a bigger cup of tea, or he was given a cheaper cup of tea. All what he got was respect. And that's what everybody is longing for. Whether it's a 12-year-old boy or a 22-year-old young man or a 40-year-old, you know, a lifelong experienced person. But, and I think the other thing therefore, I think it's the mutual learning. Very often we don't learn from the people. We also that because we have gone into a certain educational institution, we have gained the knowledge of the world, and therefore we are here to give. But I think we also need to learn. And that's the biggest thing I have learned, that, you know, every time you celebrate their festivals, you are with them in their sorrow, you are with them in their joy. And the learning that happens, you know, how do you behave in their sorrow? How do you behave in their joy? And that's what the learning happens. That leads to a rapport building. So I think these are some of the things that I have learned all through my life. And we have to therefore become just facilitators or enablers, and not the ones who do things or who, teach them.
So beautifully said, Rima Ben. Completely resonate, and I can see Balu smiling because all of his experiences, books are all about what he has learned from the tribal community, the Jenu Kurba. So Balu, over to you. What makes you care deeply about things you do? And I'd love to get your thoughts in.
I must thank you for actually inviting me to this conversation, because such a privilege to be here amongst friends, especially it's a satsang being with Arun and Rima Ben, and so thank you for that again. Sometimes amidst the figurative as well as the real pollution in Delhi, it's nice to be among such pure and holy people. I'm just processing, and there's nothing more I could agree and say with both Arunji and Rimaji. But I have a different way of looking at it. I think for too long we've been focusing on poverty. I think we need to reframe this argument. We're all looking at what people don't have. I think that is a big mistake, and that is where the dignity, respect, everything goes away. I think we have to start looking at what people have. And that's what I learned from the tribals. They have such extraordinary wisdom. They have such extraordinary knowledge. And they're rich in so many other ways. Why measure them with the scale of economics? Why not we understand that they have so much to give? We are also comfortable measuring others' lives by the way our success has been measured in life. I think if we start measuring our lives with the way tribals define their success, I think we'll be very poor. In fact, I just was recollecting as Rimaji was talking, one chapter I've written in one of the books is called Being Rich While Staying Poor. Staying poor in the outside world's perspective, but I'm actually rich. So my life's, the way I see it is what I learned from them is, I think even tribals including have been mesmerized to believe they don't have things, because the government goes and says you're poor, so therefore I do anti-poverty. So take this, take that, take this. And we made them into people who actually believe that they're actually useless and have to keep depending on the system. We have taken away their entire enterprise by coming to believe that they need to take what I provide them. And I provide them with what I think is good for them. I don't even have the patience to ask them, is it even good for them, right? So to me, I see it in two ways. Where I'm situated right now is to educate people to stop seeing things from a very narrow lens of our own so-called competence, which Rima was saying, but to expand our incompetence and start seeing things which we don't even know about. And that can come only by the lived experience of living with these people. And I've been privileged that 25 years of living like them, with them. I wouldn't even say for them, that's arrogance. With them was a beautiful experience that I've had. I think we need to reframe this narrative. Let's explore, bring out and share the extraordinary richness, the wealth that is there amongst all these communities. And that is the lessons we need to learn. And more importantly, I think our tribals also need to learn a lot of things too. I only talk from that because my life experience is only that, so I cannot speak anything else. They are like people who are standing in front of a mirror, and the mirror is full of dust. Unfortunately, the dust is actually sprayed by the government in the name of development, in the name of so many things, the forest conservation laws, etc. We have layered the mirror with dust. And then we tell them, the image you're seeing is a poor tribal. And that fellow doesn't even realize that dust is clouding his judgment as much as the government's judgment. All I believe I have done or I'm trying to do is get the tribals to understand that I'm not going to wipe. Initially, I thought I should wipe the mirror for them, and I did that mistake for 10 years. But thankfully, life's experience knocked me on my head, and I learned extraordinary things from tribal chieftains. Now, all that we do is young people tell them, you know what, you don't like this mirror's image. You have to take get your skill sets, build a duster, wipe the damn mirror, and start seeing yourself as you truly are. And that is what respect is. So I believe, Mother, I would not agree with the example you gave. It is not the shirt or the shoe that the boy felt proud of. It was that maybe that is what the tea man recognized.
Correct.
And I think what the boy saw is his real image.
Yeah.
And that image is an extraordinarily contagious, self-empowering, confidence-filling feeling. And that is what I think because I've seen the girls go through the Triple H program in our own centers. And that is the difference. that inner spark, what Vivekananda calls, the real dynamo inside us. Somehow those are external props to spark it inside. But I don't think we should start looking at the props and celebrate them. What we should celebrate is the inner spark that we are somehow the magic that is working. And to me, that is enough to keep going on. That is exactly what makes life worth living. And as we do that more and more, I think the spark inside me grows more and more. And I would remember what the message of Swami Vivekananda and Arunji referred to this in a different context, in a different scripture. But Swamiji says it so beautifully. He says, all this, I always remember, I tell myself this, that he wrote this quote only for me. It is, all the hospitals you build, all the schools you construct can get washed away in one cyclone, can crumble to dust in one earthquake. Remember that you are not the provider, but consider yourself privileged that you are the instrument through which all this change is made to happen. I think finally recognizing we are the instrument is what inspires me to do what I'm doing. So I will only stop there.
So lovely put, Balu. Loved it. I think and surprisingly, first time I'm hearing the analogy of the mirror, said despite several conversations you had. I think that's such a powerful example. That we always blame the viewer, the dust, etc. But we are the ones who have clouded it. I think, especially for our young people who are on this, and I can see several comments coming in. I think that's such a powerful message. That celebrate your strengths, celebrate your own richness, and the moment you start measuring yourself by someone else's yardstick, the poverty and the rich and the abundance lens changes. I know, Rimaben, you have to get off a little early for your next appointment. I'll come to you before I go to Arun. So I think it's all interconnected thoughts that are coming out in this conversation when we're saying, how do we work together? That it's about listening deeply. In fact, Arun, you've written a wonderful book on listening deeply itself, how to have conversations with people who necessarily aren't like you, right? And Balu, you're also saying, once you understand them, then it's not your lens, but you begin to understand the richness that exists there. The question to all of us, and maybe I'll start with you, Rimaben, is that, whatever these realizations, learnings, and it's an evolutionary process, we are at some point now, right? Let's call it X. We are at some X, and that X could be anything else. It could be in terms of impact or abundance that we've created or learning that we've done. All of us are here because we aspire to see a much stronger, better society, community around us in whatever yardsticks we might measure it as. In your perspective, if we had to move exponentially, if we had to make an exponential change, let's say we had to move from X to 100X, what are the 2-3 things that you think when I say we as a community, as a group of people, what should we be doing, thinking, feeling, whatever? So how do we expand this space into whatever we aspire it to be?
I think the first thing that comes to me, and that always comes to me, is do away with the current education system. And that's because, we go into an education system that fits us into a framework. And so whoever has gone into that education system, they all feel that they all are educated, learned. But, if I go to an artisan who does weaving, I'm an illiterate for her because I don't even know how the warp and the weft works and how do I, do the strokes and the raft moves, and I'm a complete illiterate for her. She may be thinking that how stupid. I mean, she comes and tells me everything but doesn't even know how a loom operates and how does the warp and the weft work. The same happens when I go to a field. If tomorrow you tell me that, I'm not feeling well, can you please go and plow the field? I will be clueless, So am I not completely illiterate for them? But everybody who's gone into a education system, they are taught. And, it's that colonial approach that we have somehow taken, that, oh, I am educated, the rest are illiterate, and therefore I have to do something for them. And I think that's what we have to learn, that, each one has something or the other, in their hands. It's their skill. And if that skill is, recognized, if that skill is put to use, I think you can go to 1,000x or 1,000,000x's in our country. I mean, there would be no country which is so rich in terms of skills, in terms of natural resources, in terms of folklore, in terms of, heritage, culture. But we have just put aside all that, and we think that whoever goes into those concrete buildings and learns something which has nothing to do with your life and with your work, I mean, look at me. I mean, what use is my education? I at times feel wasted 18 years of my life. I'm doing completely different, which I could have done without even going to a school or a college or giving a competitive exam. So all we are training the young people is to crack those competitive exams. And therefore, what we are preparing them is to snatch away somebody's pie and make it yours, and you start enjoying that. I mean, I think what we need to is completely change the narrative and look at building an economy which is a nurturing economy. And unless and until we do that, an economy which is very nurturing, where planting trees and, tending forest is valued as much as cutting trees for wood, or where harvesting every drop of water is valued as much, and taxing mining of water, then only I think we would be able to have a multiplier effect, as we are talking about. Sorry, I tend to speak a lot and sometimes I get agitated because I get really furious. But two things, and I think new definition of illiteracy that we are seeing, which is again being brought about, is not knowing English and digital skills. And I think if we blend that with whatever skills and whatever knowledge that people of our country have, I'm sure things can, because anyway the young people are using all the digital tools. All we need to do is that how do we create our own content and not have some content creator sitting somewhere in the world bombarding it to all the young in our country, but how do we have our own content creators? And let me congratulate you, Madan Bhai, Sunil Bhai, Pankaj Bhai, and the entire Hiddleheim community on this glorious 10 years. And let's have glorious 50 more or 100 more years to come. Thank you so much. And I sincerely apologize. I may have to hop off Arunji and Dr. Balu, but I don't want to be rude, but there was some miscommunication. So I sincerely apologize for that.
My fault entirely, Ben. My screw up, and I apologize for doing that.
No, not at all.
Then you're on mute.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rima. I think, as you said, the agitation and the passion that you shows that you truly care about this. And that's what gets us to where we want to be eventually, because that energy that we can release can galvanize, thousands and hundreds and thousands of others. Right? So you talked about again, I go back to what Balu said about the lens that we are seeing the world with, and the education system that we impose to say, hey, this is our system, live by it, where we don't recognize the abundance that exists out there. I think that mindset and heart set change is what we need to push. I know you'll have to step off in a few minutes, but I'm sure this is the first of several conversations, and the co-creation that we're doing with all of you. We are super excited with it and look forward to maybe in 10 years hence being here and saying, hey, this is what we took from today's conversation, applied it, and we're seeing some stupendous results come out. With that, let me come back to you, Arun. You have a very interesting view where you engage with a lot of youngsters, governments, startups, social sector folks, etc. And you are like you have the ringside view of what's happening everywhere. What do you think we should be doing more of and less of?
Thank you so much. Actually, Rima Ben, as always, makes me think deeply about the simple things that we should pay more attention to. When she talked about the education system, and I'm going to put it in the context of Head Held High, where a whole initiative is to enable young people who have very little money themselves, maybe have no authority in the places in which they are, to be change makers. So this is the challenge that they have, that what they are being taught on how to be a leader and how to make a plan to improve the lives of others is a very, if I can use the word, top-down, corporate-like, engineering-like way of thinking. And they don't have the resources for that. So then they keep saying, and I have been blessed for the last so many years just listening to young people about their aspirations, and they care for the things that you and I care for even more than we do, because it is their life and the lives of people around them that they want to change, and like the women of Seva do. And so they want to know what is it they can learn to do which will enable them to be the change makers and improving the lives of others around themselves, and with that, their own lives. So I say that, our Prime Minister has recently again said we need to have job creators and not job seekers. And this was some of the slogans we've used in Head Held High. Don't look for a job, create jobs for others. And again, but create jobs for others, again, is the same paradigm. I'm going to create an organization which will employ a lot of people. And what happens inside that organization, again, who gets the respect, who gets the dignity, and back to, as we're talking about the workers, as we've seen during the pandemic and before that. So I come down to the qualities required for a change maker. As Pankaj has mentioned, it's a different orientation. It's a more systems thinking than engineering. But the three qualities. The first of them is humility. And this, we who have a lot, enter this process of helping others to get dignity with not humility, but we've got to give something and we have something. And so when Balu's touched this, and I remember the first Head Held High, or was it the second in the Gandhi, the ashram in Sabarmati, when we had in the Bible Kunj, the meetings amongst Ila Ben and Muhammad Yunus and Deep Joshi and several others, who produced changes in the lives or helped people produce changes in their lives in the millions, what they have learned from each other, right? And you remember in the last session, the young people who they were supposed to teach. And so they're answering the young people's questions. The young people said, can we ask you a question? What have you learned from each other in the discussions that you had in the Bible Kunj? And I think it was Deep Joshi who was given permission by the rest to say the one most important thing they've learned, which was, Balu, you'll be delighted to hear this. That is, when you wish to go and help someone else, a community, first be sure they're giving you permission to do it. It's not your motivation that I need to, help others. And so wait for the permission to be given. Don't even ask for it. Because if you ask for it naturally, because you have more, they're going to come say, come and do it. But when you come there, you're going to come with your same ideas, your same arrogance, if I can say, and to help them. So the first is humility. Fortunately, the people at the bottom, the young leaders that you have here, are not encumbered by arrogance, because they do start with nothing. So stay there. The second thing that education destroys, however, is this very thing, by telling people that you must learn how to make an impression on others, speak well, stand up well, or like what you said, dress well, you know, look like they look. Yeah, become like them. So there's the mirror again. Use my mirror to judge yourself. And that is where you strip them, because they're way behind you in that, with those measures. But if you were to measure yourself by them, their measures, you will find, like Rima Ben said when she talked about the women who work, and for what at the end, you realize how small you are, how ungodlike you are, and how godlike in terms of their ability to nurture others, even when they have little, how godlike they are. So it's a different way of being that one can learn from the tribal people and the people who we're trying to help, actually. It's the other way around. Learn from them and don't try and teach them. Now, in the education system, people are, as I said, taught to express themselves clearly, to explain what's on their minds very evocatively and clearly. Apni man ki baat sabko batao. But actually, unki man ki baat suni hai aapne kya? Unki dil mein kya baat hai? Okay. And yes, what are their resources? Respect them for the resources that they have. Because their resources, when applied by millions of people, will transform the lives of millions and more people there. So this metaphor that is being used now, when you say stand up and start up, again, the Prime Minister used it about unicorns. I think the unicorn is the worst metaphor for the sort of leaders we want. Because a unicorn increases her own or his own wealth into millions and billions. And who in the process, whose wealth in the process was increased? And even many of these unicorns will sort of flash away like a shooting star and have destroyed a lot in the process. Maybe they'll have some residual wealth that they protected for themselves because of limited liability. So what have we created? What change have we created? Whereas the metaphor that we used in the Hiddleheim meetings in Sabarmati about the fireflies, little jugnus, they have their own little light. And it's because they care for removing the darkness around themselves and seeing their way through the darkness. They just rise up with their own little light. Those are the leaders. And if millions such, and we have millions such in our country, and my great confidence in my country is because I am meeting day after day the young people of this country who are passionately making a difference in a small way to the world around them with whatever they have and whatever is the need they feel the community around them needs to have addressed. So that's the second. It's a compassion and being sensitive to the quality and the condition of the system around you. So systems thinking, and underlying both the humility as well as the systems thinking is deep listening. Listening especially to people who are not like yourself, and even more so to people from whom you think you can learn nothing, and to whom you have to speak and teach something. No, just be quiet and listen to people not like yourself. This is what education has to be about. For us older people to relearn what real systems being is, which is listening to others calmly and learning from them. We have to unlearn this as experts, as big shots, as big leaders, and learn that other quality which people are naturally born with. The child is naturally born with curiosity. And a rich child will also play equally well with a poor child. It doesn't seem to know the difference, but they just learn from each other and enjoy being together. So this collaborative spirit of learning from each other and being together, so that together we can then create a world which is good for everyone. And I would say this, that listening is not difficult. It's a matter of unlearning what you are taught, which is speaking. And Madan, we talked about it. I have a problem with, what do you call that whole 10-minute, 11-minute stand up and say something?
The TEDx talks, yeah.
Yeah, it is when you are taught to how to impress others in a few minutes with your ideas. There's no discussion afterwards. I would much rather, like you started, say, well, what do you care about? What can I learn from you? That's what's coming to my mind.
Going back to a lot of conversations at the gap time around when we had similar conversations. And Balu, we were also, I think one of the years we were a participant there as well at this congregation at Sabarmati Ashram. So let me come to you, Balu, with two questions. One is, of course, from your perspective, whatever the next 200x is, and as Arun and Rima Ben were both talking about, you are a man of many ideas. So if there is one wild idea you think we should consider, what would that be?
I was just thinking of everything that needs to be said has been said, but I'm going to actually challenge you people with a different context. I want to talk about it in one is a conceptual level, the way I see it, and then maybe you can extract the operational ideas out of it. And I like I said, I only learned from tribal chieftains and others. So I'm going to give a story and with something which I think is what you have to try to move towards. I think I have a basic problem with scaling up, because we always look at scaling up numerically. I think that's a fundamentally disastrous flaw, because every man has to become a clone of himself in his attainments, and the metrics of success keeps getting multiplying. I would look at it something far deeper. And I say that to me, scaling up is a far deeper, very strong qualitative understanding of what growth is all about. And so what I would like head held high when it talks of 100x is, right now, I think most of your programs are designed around the deficit mindset. I think you have to have the courage to move away towards the abundance mindset, which is not going to be easy. You have to go back to the drawing board and completely recalibrate. And essentially what Arunji and Rima Ben said is all the same thing. I'm using different words in the way I have understood life. So what do I mean by this? And I'll give you an example. Mainstream education, we are all critical. Some of us had the courage to move away from it, but we still use a lot of mainstream education. If I'm speaking in English today, it is the mainstream education that gives me the ability to communicate. But there are a lot of filth also, which I had the courage to drop away. I'll tell you one example. A chieftain called Kempaya. And I used to be very troubled with agriculture in the tribal areas, because anything we grow, the elephants would come and destroy, and we would feel so frustrated. So tribals would say, why grow? Why bother? And they would simply give up. So one day, in this usual, if you can call it arrogance or so-called urban sham, I felt that we got to grow something that the elephants don't know about. And so we hit upon this idea of cauliflower, or cabbage. And we said, okay, these elephants haven't seen cabbage in their lives. They will know what to do with it. Let's grow cabbage. And you want to understand, it was a brilliant idea. All of us grew cabbage. We suddenly had 20 tons of cabbage. So just before the cabbage is harvested, I was in Mysore. I went to the market and they told me it's 6 rupees a kg. And the naive idiot I was, I thought if it's 6 rupees in the market, my tribals will at least get 4 rupees. So, very surprising, I can never understand this. Maybe Arunji can help understand, maybe decipher this out for me. Our agriculture markets always operate in the night. And they're always monopolized by this middlemen, and they're extraordinary specialists. And you only think doctors specialize, but that's rubbish. You should see the mandis. This guy will only deal with potato. Another guy will only deal with onions. One guy will only deal with cabbage. You cannot sell it to anybody else except that guy. He determines the price. So my colleague, who put all of it, and we had a truck those days. He drove the truck because we want to save every rupee. Put all the tribals. We could only squeeze in 12 tons that day. We went with the truck, went to the APMC yard in Mysore, and this tribal, that mandi fellow told us 30 paise per kilo. So 6 rupees in the market the previous day. I actually went and bought it just for me to feel confident that the tribals can sell, and then 30 paise. I was shocked. And there's no cell phones. And my colleague did not know what to do. The tribals, he said, let us dump it, like all farmers do, dump it on the streets and come back. And then some other tribal said, no, why dump it? This is real Adivasiyat. They said, let's gift it to an orphanage or a hospital and go back. We think of dumping because we think economics. They think human values. And finally, my colleague said, let's at least sell it at 30 paise, at least the diesel fare we'll get. He came back very despondent at 6 in the morning. I was very broken down. I said, what whole effort, we somehow managed to keep the elephants away. That was more success for us. And then we couldn't get a rupee out of this cabbage. So evening, Kempaya used to meet me regularly. And he would talk to me. And it was like Bhagavad Gita for me. He was my Krishna. That evening, he came to see me with his beetle leaf juice streaming down his mouth. And he asked me, why are you so dull? I said, what is this Kempaya? 6 months we struggled, and then finally we got tribals to grow cabbage last 3 months. We got a good crop and hardly any money. I'm feeling so despondent. He looked at me and said, how stupid are you? I said, what? Why do you call me stupid? He knew I was stupid, but he reclassified me as stupid. I said, you would explain this. You would tell me why. He said, how are you even looking at this as a failure? And to me, he said, you are measuring life by 30 paise and 6 rupees. But have you ever understood what joy it would have given to plant a seed on the soil, become one with the soil? Now we talk of Advaita, he was leaving it. Become one with the soil, see it come out, see God's work in action. He said, agriculture is not an economic activity. He said, agriculture is a divine opportunity to experience the divinity that unfolds in front of you. And it was so beautifully explained. He said, that is agriculture. And the joy can never be taken away by the trader. Only I can get it because I did it here. And so what are you looking at life? I was looking at life from the deficit mindset. Kempaya was looking at life from the abundance mindset. I think if you can get our young people to transition to that pathway, how we do it, we all have to think through a little deeper. But more importantly for me, what the story told me was my framing of life itself was flawed. That is what education did to me. It gave me a flawed yardstick. And it took a Kempaya with no formal, so-called no formal schooling, generational learning from his forefathers to tell me what I understood life as. That was Bhagavad Gita in action. And I think if you have to really go 100x, this is the 1000x you got to go. This is x cubed in my opinion. Go away from a deficit mindset to a abundance mindset. You may use different tools. You may use technology, partner organizations, collaborative opportunities. But finally, if you miss this out, we can never create. See, end of the day, I now recognized you have no choice. You can't renegotiate capitalism. But each of us have an opportunity in life to redefine capitalism. And we can adjectivize it by saying what the world needs is compassionate capitalism. What we need is a soulful economy, the Atma back in economy. And it is these ideas of Kempaya which can get the Atma back. And if Hiddleheim can give to thousands and thousands of people that you work with, if you can give this idea to India, I think that will be the Jagat Guru that Vivekananda spoke about. These are the models the world needs to understand. Otherwise, we are all hurtling towards such unsustainable lifestyles that as you create entrepreneurs who believe in looking at a for benefit economy, where every participant, every stakeholder, proportionate to the value he brings to the table, gets the benefit that he deserves. And if that is a measure of life itself, I think it's irrelevant. Education, qualification, everything becomes irrelevant because that's a deep value-driven economy. That would be what I would say Hiddleheim should focus on the next 10, 20, 30 years.
So powerfully said, Balu. And, I definitely see the point of the growth or the abundance mindset versus the deficit or the fixed mindset. And to an extent at Hiddleheim, one of the things we've desisted from doing is to put people on straight targeted pathways, right? The challenge is that, you have got to train and I will measure everybody on what placement rates you got, right? But that's a choice that youth make to say, what do you want to do with your life? And you try to have the conversation, but point absolutely noted that how do you let 1,000 flowers bloom in the ways that they will and go through the joys of the blooming than measuring the quality and quantity of each flower on a standardized yardstick. I know, Arun, you got,
yes,
definitely.
Yes. Yeah, because Balu did, this is a conversation you said, and Balu said, Arun perhaps can explain why it's sold at ₹6 and ₹4 is what the farmer gets or the tribal gets, and what happens at night. And this is the problem we are facing right now into lifting the incomes and the dignity of poor farmers, and also, I would say, tribal people who live off more natural produce from forests and fields, that they are not having enough incomes, which is your poverty problem, and they don't have enough respect and dignity, which is the deeper issue that we all want to address. So I said that what I care about, I care for justice too. So I do want the tribal people or any of the poor persons, everybody, to live in joy. I get it. And it should be, that's the prime reason. All of us should. Then the world is, everything is, living joyously, every part of it, every plant, every animal, every human being. So measure the quality of the world, not by its GDP, the economic measure, but by the abundance of the well-being in every living thing in the world. Okay. And people are working now on how do you measure well-being, and from whose perspective do you define well-being? So you'll have to start there. What does the tribal chiefs think well-being is about, and not your idea of what well-being should be about, which you then start having, as Balu very well said, large-scale programs to give well-being to other people, where actually the well-being is more to be learned from them, and they and you learn from them. But justice. So I have been now studying very hard about capitalism and economics. And in the present capitalist system, where you describe it like a value chain, and every person in the value chain obviously is adding value in the whole process, where does the power lie? Okay, the power doesn't lie equally in all parts of the value chain. The producers at the beginning, especially farm producers who live in uncertain lives, where they have to depend on nature, which is uncertain, and the elephants can come and other things, that's where they live, and they work with their own imagination, their wisdom, and their labor there. And then, of course, finally, there's a consumer to whom you've got to get the produce, and it's the well-being of the consumer also, who must get good products at low price and at the right time. But to connect the two, there is a chain in between. And it is the people in the chain, they do provide value to society by being there. But they capture too much of the value in the whole process compared to especially the poorer people in the agriculture side. And even workers in factories, they actually create the value by their work, but the value is then described as money value and taken by the investors, and shows up in the stock markets as the progress by valuations and very poor values in the enterprise. So what do we do? So around the world, I've been looking and finding that even in the richest countries, where farm workers, like in the cotton farmers of the United States and southern United States, when there was poverty and droughts and everything, they have become the world's most strongest lobby in global trade matters, and now hurting our farmers. But how did they get there? They from the bottom started to own the next step in the value chain. Own it, not hand it over to some people to say, come buy from us at a low price, like Fab India does perhaps. But then they don't have the power in the trade, you see. It's the largesse and good-heartedness of the people above, and the next step and the next step, and so it goes. So the construction of cooperatives at the farming level, at the workers level, and then going up at the next level, many workers cooperatives owning the next processing. And this is how the cotton farmers there increase their wealth. And here in India, we've got the remarkable example of the dairy movement in Gujarat, which is spread. So I just, Balu, had the privilege of learning from over 3 days in workshops organized by IRMA, where they had gathered local people, including people working in tribal areas, about this matter about incomes and wealth of the poorer people, because we need new solutions for solving our farm laws, which thank goodness have been put on the back burner for the time being. We have to learn again what is required. And so cooperatives, forming cooperatives which are owned by the people, like the Seva model and the Amul model. And this is very different to how a corporation is run. A cooperative is architected differently. The decisions of what the cooperative should do and how its profits should be used is taken by the workers, the producers. It's not taken by the investors. Okay. Now that's when we come to that we must create more of these, but they need money also to begin with. Where will the money come from to support their growth? If they turn to the stock markets, like we're trying to say, social stock exchange, and Balu's written a terrific critique of it, and thank you for sending it to me. These are working on two very different principles. They're two very different philosophies. If you need to get for genuine social enterprises, which is to increase the wealth, I'm saying not just the income, the wealth of the people at the bottom, because with wealth, they get freedom. With wealth, they get a sense of power. in their own lives, and together they can combine their wealth, all these fireflies, to have a greater clout in the political system. So that's what we've got to create movements of the people, by the people, for the people. And there is an architecture to a movement which is quite different to a corporate architecture. Okay, how decisions are taken in the movement. And Kurian's autobiography, which I too had a dream, is very instructive, which is stories. And he says that he started life just after the independence of India. He was 20 years old and went to school in Bangalore, did science, Indian Institute of Science, and then went off to Michigan. But the dream was that we have to do something for the people of India. And of course, I'm 20 years younger than him, but I also grew up saying, no, life has to be about doing something for the people of my country. But all that one learns in management is how to do something very good for the stakeholders, the shareholders of the company, and hoping that if all companies grow, somehow the people's well-being will grow. It's not going to happen. So an agenda for Hiddleheim, I'm building on Balu's statement, because you people are corporate people, as Pankaj also said, and so have I been. What is it that we can help in terms of ideas, concrete ideas, which the people can themselves begin to apply, like it was done in Amul and in Seva, and not try and teach them our corporate ways of how to be effective.
Correct.
I do find that corporate people coming into this movement of creating incomes and farm incomes and incomes generally are just teaching people marketing, teaching people finance, teaching people operations management. That's not the essence. Teaching people how to work with each other to get power by being together, like Ela Ben said, we are a union of women. We are not an economic enterprise. We see it as an economic enterprise because it is very effective. And the same thing Sardar Patel and Tribhuvan Das Patel said about Amul. It is a union of women who own buffaloes, milk producers. It's a union, it's called a union. So think of it in that spirit. It is collective action by those who have very little, who looking after each other in the spirit of the fireflies, who then together own the economic steps in the chain and don't leave it to others to take from them and sell to them, hopefully at some fair price. I mean, buy from them at some fair price. It is not going to happen. As Balu said, you're not going to change the fundamentals of economics. And I just end by saying Mahatma Gandhi's vision was this. Please, it was this, that he wasn't a socialist and a communist. And he said, I respect capitalists, which were, and the greatest capitalist is the woman with the charkha. It's her means of production. She produces, she sells, someone buys in the village, and we will create self-reliant economic communities where everyone should live in dignity.
Wow. This is like drinking from a fire hose, listening to both of you. There's so many ideas, or as you said, around fireflies rising in our own minds. I know this conversation can go on, and before I realized we had moved from 5:33 to 6:02, and I just wondering where the last half an hour has gone. It seemed like a few seconds. Before I conclude, Sunil, want to pull you in to quickly. You've been listening quietly like a fly on the wall. Any ideas, comments?
A huge amount of learning, as always, from Arun. And Arun is always, every time we talk, I hear him. Every time Balu says something, I'm dramatically humbled, and I feel like a small little ant. And I keep saying, oh God, why didn't I think of this? But the thing that you had started off with, which was, what do we do? I just want to make sure we state that. Our ability is to enable somebody who has a income issue, has the lack of opportunity, and is not having literacy, and therefore is not having the ability or the capability to fend for himself and have self-respect and dignity at an economic level. And we said that we are giving this away. We give this to everybody. And if we are doing X, what would make us become 100X? And so I was pondering, listening to all of this, and with all that, the way to do it would have to be the way that we just heard from Ela Ben and Rima Ben, from Balu, from Arun. But I think that I'm just getting a thought and an idea, and I'm not sure it's going to work or not, and I'm going to give it anyway. It's like Gandhi was very good at creating simple structures and strictures by which he would then operate and create revolutions. So one was Satyagraha, non-violence. And I was really getting really angry when I was listening to some of these stories. And the same anger that drove us in the beginning is the same anger. I put up this thing that I was about to cry. I want that anger back in every one of us. And I want to make this a non-violent anger, an anger not outward but inward. So and my desire is, and my intent is, can we create a revolution through one for one, whereby one person takes on the onus of guiding another person, guiding, not mentoring, holding their hand while we put them through this transformation process, so that their dreams come alive in the way they wish to, but do it getting hundreds and thousands of people involved as individuals, as Arun says, as fireflies. And it's quite feasible. We're doing that experiment with Seva. And the second thing that comes to me is deep collaboration. And that we've been lucky with Rima Ben, we've been getting that collaboration. Whereas they really need what we have, and we could together make this greatly happen. And collaboration normally doesn't work so well in NGOs, but it's been working brilliantly with Balu. For instance, he's taken on what we have and he's implementing it. And so is now Seva wanting to do it. And I think these two things are possibly ways for us to make this 100-fold. And 100-fold is not scaling for me. It's really about how, in our lifetime, how many people can we make a small difference to? Not because they are winning a great thing in life, simply because we unfortunately or fortunately have that ability. And not say, I think Balu had said this to us when we last met. If not me, who? If not now, when? And to me, that's really what I want. I just want to share that with you.
Fantastic. And with that, I know we are running out of time. Maybe Balu, I'll come back to you to say, hey, at Swami Vivekananda Youth Movement, you worked with a lot of youth. So if you, can I request you to share if you were to give 2-3 messages to our youth who are on this call, what would your call to action to them be?
Believe in yourself and look at your inner potential, express it out in 100 different ways. Economic activities are one, but there's so many other ways you can. And don't think that you always need some elder out there to guide you. You can actually turn out to be great guides for all of us. And faith is power. That's all I would say. That's what Swamiji always believed. Just believe in yourself, have faith. I'm not saying have stupid faith or naive faith, but have a very enlightened appreciation of your own inner capacities. Unleash that power within you in an ethical, moral way, and the world will be such a great place to live in.
Beautifully said. What a powerful way to summarize the message for all of our young folks out there. And Balu, Arun, Rima Ben, who's just stepped off. There's so much of learning for all of us. I think one thing we will definitely commit for having spent your time with us is that we will deeply reflect, come back to you, thoughts, and I'm sure each of these angles that you came from will really help us in putting together a far more compelling process, story, whatever out there to galvanize and eventually, Balu, what you said is what we need to do, right? How do we instill belief in ourselves, belief in everybody, and in that and expressions in many ways than just more economic activity and make the world a more abundant place, I think is the dream that all of us are living. So with that, thank you so much for your thoughts, comments and ideas. And definitely this is not the last of the conversations, this is the first of many as we kind of gear up all of ourselves for a journey into the next 10, 20, whatever years. So thank you so much. Parul, handing it back to you.
Thank you, Madan. And I would have just wanted this conversation to go on. Yeah, absolutely. I'm humbled and feel extremely privileged to be part of this day at Hiddleheim along with so many team members and young people. It has been a beautiful evening, and with such profound and insightful exchanges, it was heartwarming and inspiring to hear the panel. Arunji, this was my second online presence along with you, and I'm truly looking forward to having one in reality. So fingers crossed for that. Dr. Balu, I've been a great fan of yours from my days at Karnataka Health Promotion Trust. We have met briefly. I hope to meet you soon again. Arima Ben, with such deep ownership, I'm always inspired by her. Sunil sir, Madan, Pankaj, you've brought in so many perspectives. And I'm sure everyone could see and feel the truthfulness of the passion to evolve and inspire all of us today. I would like to wrap up this 10th anniversary event with these 10 takeaways for Hiddleheim from the panel today. The first one, to create possibilities, we must be in it together, and so there is no space for ego. Number two, all of us must stop and ponder on this one question. What is in it for me? What do I really care about? What can I learn from the communities I work with? Number three, there is a wave of aspirations of young people and communities all around us. As an ecosystem, we all need to work together to identify, catalyze the power of potential and transform it to the power of possibilities. Number four, everyone deserves dignified, decent work in life. How can all of us contribute with humility towards this? Number five, look at what people have, their knowledge, their skill. Everyone has so much to give. We need to believe communities have agency and enterprise, and to be with them, you need to wait for the community to give you the permission. Number six, celebrate your strength and what you're capable of giving. Number seven, shift from a deficit to an abundance mindset and encourage young people on this path. Number eight, can we redefine some standard definitions and work towards compassionate capitalism and soulful economy? Number nine, what is it that we can do to generate ideas as an organization? How can we enable those who have very little towards collective action? And number 10, individual action for transformation and abundance. And for this, we must seek deep collaboration. Thank you to all of you for giving us this insightful and such a rich knowledge from Hiddleheim. Our gratitude to Dr. Balu, Arunji, and Hima Ben to be with us today and enlighten us with their learnings. A big thank you to the entire team for being so resilient and passionate and doing what they do so well with all their heart and their head held high. Congratulations to all of us on this milestone. We have miles and miles to go as the Jugnus who light up the path for others selflessly. We will be back with more every month for the next 1 year to celebrate the power of possibilities. This is me, Parul, signing off. Have a great evening and take care, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you
this has been a great exchange.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.